This is Dave Knows MMA.
I'm a really big fan of Chael Sonnen's podcast. It's called You're Welcome. I've always enjoyed hearing Sonnen express his viewpoint. I find he does a really good job of giving the perspective of both the fighter and the promoter. I find it especially interesting when he talks about things from the promoter's perspective and what it takes to put off a live show. I think most fans don't really take into consideration what goes into the production of a live MMA/combat sports event, and I think it's good to hear a viewpoint from the other side of the fence from time to time, just for perspective purposes. I've been listening to his podcast since day one, so it's impossible for me to recall which episode he said this, but at one point Chael said something that has always stuck out of my mind, and that was this. Hardcore MMA fans make up 15% of the MMA fan base. Firstly, that's interesting to me because it's a statistic I've never really considered before, and secondly, because I thought it was shockingly low. Do us MMA nuts really only make up significantly less than a quarter of the MMA fan base? I'm not disputing the stat. I have no doubt that if old Uncle Chael threw it out there, it came from as good a source as any, but I'm baffled at that number. The first question that comes to mind when I hear that stat is, what's the definition of a hardcore fan? I don't know. I guess I would consider a hardcore fan as someone who visits MMA websites on a daily basis, watches at least 80% of pay-per-views and live events, and someone who's very up-to-date on upcoming fights and the trials and tribulations of what's going on from fighters, from the most notable and famous guys and girls on the roster, right on down to the folks getting $2,500 from Reebok a fight. There are many ways to try to pinpoint and sum up what makes a hardcore MMA fan. For example, if you hear the name Jeff Novitzky and know exactly who that is, I'd say you're a hardcore fan. But getting back to the actual number and trying to process exactly what it means, you mean to tell me when I'm at a UFC event in an arena of 15,000 fans, only 2,250 of them know the backgrounds and the storylines of the competitors performing that night? And that the other 12,750 couldn't tell you that the owners of Zuffa's names are Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta of the Station Casino Gaming Empire? Is the bubble really that small? I'd like to think we account for a lot more than that, but the more I think about this, the more I'm realizing it may be some wishful thinking. I don't really know what to say. As I've mentioned in the past, I'm no expert, and I have no insight that anybody else doesn't have, but what do you think? Do we really only make up 15% of the fan base? Where does that number come from? Are we that insignificant in MMA brass? No matter what the case is, I believe the number of fight fans overall is growing as time goes on, and with that, the number of diehard fans will also grow, so I'm optimistic that our clan will grow and prevail going forward. But 15%? Damn.